WW Follow-Up, your biggest and most anticipated show of the year. These days, the typically eventful post-WrestleMania Raw is the show which most fans are clamoring to see after the dust has settled on the showcase of the Immortals. But in the past, for a long time, it was all about the pay-per-view after. Usually, that meant Backlash and Extreme Rules, two well-defined dates in the WWE calendar that promised fresh rivalries and matches, WrestleMania rematches, and gave an inkling as to WWE's direction for their new season after the granddaddy of them all. Of course, a lot of the time, WWE had to present something appetizing without the aid of some of the top characters and stars that only come out for Mania season, but the company often did a good job of making up for a lack of star power by putting together some truly exceptional cards. While interest in the product will sometimes dip once the buzz of WrestleMania season has subsided, that hasn't stopped WWE from putting on follow-up pay-per-views that occasionally better the marquee event itself. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 best WrestleMania follow-up pay-per-views. Join us! Number 10, Backlash 2005. WrestleMania 21 had gotten the ball rolling briskly into a new era for WWE, plastering John Cena and Batista with the company's top belts for the first time for each. The Raw brand had kept that momentum going with a mostly solid edition of Backlash, headlined by a Batista Triple H rematch for the World Heavyweight title. While that match was merely decent, a bloodless sequel to their WrestleMania main event, Backlash 2005 was boosted by two quality bouts featuring Money in the Bank entrants from the prior month. Shelton Benjamin retained the IC title over Chris Jericho in a spirited struggle to kick things off, while Edge knocked out Chris Benoit in a vicious last man standing match. Raw's upper mid-card was certainly loaded with promising youth and established prestige at this point in time. To sweeten the show a bit more, Hulk Hogan wrestled what would be his final non-Big Four WWE pay-per-view match to date, when he and Shawn Michaels formed an ageless super team, defeating the nefarious duo of Muhammad Hassan and Daivari. While the match felt like it belonged on a 1987 edition of Saturday Night's Main Event, it did give Backlash 2005 a distinct flavour and certainly appealed to nostalgic fans ready for another dose of Hulkamania. Number 9, Extreme Rules 2011. This event is perhaps most notable for its unaired aftermath, in which John Cena informed the crowd in Tampa that then US President Barack Obama had announced the death of Osama bin Laden. Prior to that unexpected announcement, Extreme Rules had run circles around the lackluster WrestleMania 27 from 4 weeks earlier, even if Michael Cole did wrestle on both shows. A pair of WrestleMania rematches in Randy Orton vs CM Punk, Last Man Standing, and Rey Mysterio vs Cody Rhodes, Falls Count Anywhere, bolstered the undercard nicely enough. However, it was the two world title matches that brought this Extreme Rules into acclaim. The first saw Christian topple Alberto Del Rio in a ladder match for the World Heavyweight Championship that Edge had recently vacated. It was Edge's appearance in the closing sequence that brought an already incredible match into all-timer terrain, where it would be sadly overshadowed by Orton's winning of the belt 2 nights later. The night was capped off by Cena winning back the WWE Championship over The Miz and John Morrison in a 3-way cage match, which was worlds better than the Cena-Miz WrestleMania snoozer. To be fair, almost anything was better than that match. Well, except Michael Cole and his gumball tattoos. Number 8, Backlash 2002. Hulkamania was running wild once more, the powerful wave of retrified pomp and Americana resonating with the post-Attitude Era crowd in a manner that nobody could have predicted. Once Hulk Hogan received that godlike adulation from the fans at Toronto's Sky Dome, WWE knew that they had to cash in on the craze. The result was Hogan going over Triple H in a somewhat flat match to win his 6th WWE Championship. It's a little bit funny that Hogan ended up being the last WWF champion before the company changed its name that year. The card picked up in other places, namely Kurt Angle and Edge's jaunty back and forth that would pay off the following month in a hair versus hair match. A freshly returned Eddie Guerrero's victory over IC champion Rob Van Dam was another highlight, as was Tajiri's Cruiserweight title victory over Billy Kidman. The event is also notable for featuring the first pay-per-view match of Brock Lesnar when he squashed Jeff Hardy like a sherbet-coloured bug. It was also the site of the last ever match pitting Steve Austin against The Undertaker with Ric Flair as special referee, and while it wasn't their best shared effort, it's historic nonetheless. Number 7, Backlash 2006. Let's just get this out the way right now. WWE's attempt to make May 19 a viral marketing phrase in order to promote See No Evil worked as a detached irony meme, and the film did turn a profit, but man, it was death as a wrestling storyline. One need only watch the Kane Big Show match to see the calendar-related nonsense in all of its glory. Bizarre movie campaign aside, Backlash 2006 is one of those wonderfully underrated secondary pay-per-views that you can fire up on the network, sit back and say, damn, this was a really good card. The main event alone, with John Cena barely surviving Triple H and Edge to retain the WWE Championship, may well have been the company's best match that year. A wild main event style brawl with Helmsley wearing what appears to be 3 crimson masks at the same time. The rest of the card featured an enjoyable variety. Whether it was a surprisingly good opener or an aesthetically awing Intercontinental title match, Backlash 2006 almost matched the intensity of WrestleMania 22. And let's not forget Vince McMahon's insistence on fighting God. When Vince lost his mind, the real winners were everyone watching. Number 6, Extreme Rules 2014. First off, it should be noted that one of the greatest pre-show matches in WWE history took place at this event, as El Torito bested Hornswoggle in a WLC match that was far better than perhaps anyone was expecting. The pay-per-view itself boasted a hot New Jersey crowd, and what they were given was a night of new faces going over on champions of the early brand extension era. Cesaro, fresh off winning the first ever armbar, went over Jack Swagger and Rob Van Dam in a triple threat match. Later, the Shield defeated Evolution in a white-hot 6-man tag, one of the last times that the crowd was overwhelmingly happy to see Roman Reigns spear and pin someone. The main event saw the only pay-per-view WWE Champion defense by Daniel Bryan, not counting Randy Orton's cash-in the previous year. Bryan defeated former ally Kane in an Extreme Rules match that owed its composition to the Attitude Era's zest and gave us the wonderful image of a diving headbutt off of a forklift. Number 5, Backlash 2009. Any pay-per-view that gives us the ageless Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in a one-on-one match will get our attention. The fact that he and Chris Jericho pieced together an admirable 12-minute bout indicates that perhaps Roddy Piper and Jimmy Snuka should have sat WrestleMania 25 out 3 weeks earlier. Backlash 2009 is already a better event than WrestleMania 25 overall. The 2 world title matches were a vast improvement from Mania, even if one of them was a 6-man tag. The Triple H Batista Shane McMahon vs. Legacy match was something wild, and the mocking reaction to the shattered Helmsley in the post-match was delicious. John Cena and Edge's last man standing match for the World Heavyweight title was the sort of top-notch brawl you would expect from 2 main event veterans, sheer brutality and drama at its best. Add a violent Hardy's I Quit rematch, and Christian beating Jack Swagger for the ECW title in 2 enjoyable undercard bouts, and you have a clear example of a Mania follow-up that tops its predecessor. Number 4, Backlash 2007. Yes, it's the show where Vince McMahon became ECW champion. Looking at the positive though, you could say it was the last time that Evil Vince was a fun character, given that the 1-2 combo of the limo explosion and then the Hornswoggle paternity mess sapped his mojo for good. Vince's tainted win over Bobby Lashley was the worst match of a 6-match card that over-delivered otherwise. Once more, it was an event where the 2 world title bouts were off the charts. Batista and Undertaker's World Heavyweight title last man standing match, what is it with last man standing matches at Backlash and Extreme Rules, was another captivating chapter in their brutish rivalry. That itself was topped minutes later when John Cena retained the WWE Championship in a fatal 4-way over Edge, Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels, in which the drama incrementally built to a spectacular flourish. Elsewhere, there are no bad matches, whether it's Chris Benoit beating MVP in a mat-based battle, the reunited Hardys retaining the tag team gold over Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, or Melina going over on Mickie James to keep the women's belt. Number 3, Extreme Rules 2012. Perhaps this one would be ranked a teensy bit higher if not for the wonky ending. Brock Lesnar beat John Cena within an inch of his jorts-wearing life, giving WWE fans some of the most gruesome imagery it had seen since the ogreish elements of the company had been phased out. Instead of giving the Beast Incarnate the win, Big Match John ekes out the victory, then cuts a pseudo-going-away speech that undermines the fact that he won, especially since he never actually went anywhere. Alas, that main event was off the charts, coming at a time when Lesnar's presence on WWE programming was much more welcomed by locked-in fans. It's arguably the company's best match of 2012, a refreshing montage of grisly images that betrayed the far tamer PG direction. And yet, with a better ending, it could have been heralded as something even greater. Elsewhere, fans were given a much better Daniel Bryan-Sheamus bout, a WrestleMania-centric apology that flirted with 4 stars. CM Punk and Chris Jericho just about equaled the angst of their hard-hitting Mania battle in a Chicago street fight in front of Punk's friends and neighbors. Even Kane and Randy Orton outdid their admittedly average WrestleMania effort, so this particular rematch of Mania was a rousing success. Number 2, Backlash 2004. It was going to be damn hard for Chris Benoit, Triple H and Shawn Michaels to outdo the potent blend of emotion and physicality that went into their WrestleMania 20 epic, but they certainly packed the gear to make that trek. The idea of having Earl Hebner dispatched to the ring to preside over a Michaels sharpshooter spot in Canada was a beautiful eye poke, especially since Benoit made the comeback and won anyway. It didn't quite match the perfection of their Mania main event, but it was as close as it needed to be. In the same neighborhood of the main events was Randy Orton and Mick Foley's Anything Goes brawl that doubled as Orton's coming out party. Prior to the match, Orton was just a hand-picked blue chipper with a good look that was being given a sustained push. When it was over, the Legend Killer looked like a goddamn warrior, having fought off Foley's slaughterous attempts at maiming him. Other matches, like the Chris Jericho handicap match win over Christian and Trish Stratus, and Shelton Benjamin's opening victory over Ric Flair, showed what a great place the Raw brand was in at the time. But it was those 2 big matches that took this show to the next level. Number 1, Backlash 2000. You know who you are. When you saw the title of this list, you excitedly yelled Backlash 2000 at your screen, didn't you? And really, there wasn't much of a choice for number 1 here. The Mount Rushmore of greatest secondary WWE pay-per-views ever includes Canadian Stampede, No Way Out 2001, Money in the Bank 2011, and this here delicious little bitch of a card. Not only did WWE get the ending right by putting The Rock over Triple H for the WWE Championship, but it was done in heart-stopping fashion, courtesy of a returning Steve Austin, helping fell each of the corporation flunkies that ran interference. The crowd pop for the sound of Austin's glass shattering still provides chills over 20 years later. At least I hope it's the pop that's causing these chills. Maybe I should book an appointment with my GP. Really, so much of Backlash 2000 was great, putting the limp WrestleMania 2000 to shame. Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko versus Scotty 2 Hotty, and Eddie Guerrero versus S.A. Rios demonstrated how much the signing of the Radicals away from WCW only enhanced an already hot WWE product. Through crowd-pleasing matches that were anything but sterile multi-man bouts like those of WrestleMania, Backlash 2000 was simply a crowd pleaser that wasn't plagued by overthinking things. It's a show that's still raved about today, and for good reason. I mean, it even has a Bull Buchanan match. What else do you really want?